Now, we come to France24.com, and then it was picked up by Global News. But listen to this headline, Mike. Has the world gone mad? Question mark. My answer is yes, it's going mad. But the next part of that headline is mental health disorders are on the rise globally. And then, 4 or 5 paragraphs into it, the guy that's talking about this, he said the burden of mental illness has risen dramatically worldwide in the past 25 years. And then it goes on to analyze and try to figure out ways, and you and I can talk about that. But Mike, tell the people what the very first sentence says, and then let's just unpack this.
Well, it says mental health disorders are on the rise in every country in the world and could cost the global economy up to $16 trillion between 2010 and 2030 if a collective failure to respond is not addressed, according to an expert report on Tuesday. And Patel, who is one of the experts here, he says the situation is extremely bleak. Yeah. Carl, you and I have been addressing this for the last 10 years, pointing out, yes, the world has gone mad. You know, I had a conversation. By the way, we just celebrated Thanksgiving in Canada on Monday, and I had a house full of people, and one of them, we got into a debate about this, about transgender surgeries and all of this, and I said, look, we need to start loving these people properly and addressing the mental concerns here, because it's all nurture. There's nothing natural about this at all. Yeah. And she said, well, people feel like they're born in the wrong body, and I said, well, we need to deal with the mental health crisis here and not say to them it's okay to mutilate themselves. Right. Yeah. And she said, and this person went on to say, well, society is now accepting that these people should be accommodating. And I said, 70 years ago, an entire society thought it was proper and right that the belief that Jews were less than human and should be wiped off the face of the earth. An entire society thought that was right. Yeah. Yeah. But what do we think about that now? We will look back on this as a very hurtful and destructive way of treating people, allowing them to say, I want to cut myself, it will make me feel better. Yeah. Yeah, and entire societies, including Great Britain and America. Great Britain, the largest empire the world has ever known, with the nickname "the sun never sets on Great Britain," on the British Empire. Right. And then the United States, we started as just colonies of that hugely expanding global empire. But between Great Britain and the United States, we all thought that slavery, not you and me and, individuals, but as a culture, we all accepted slavery is just fine. People with darker color skin are less than us. They're less than human. They're subhuman. I never thought that, but I'm just saying this is what these cultures thought, even codified it, put it in law. Our Supreme Court ruled in favor of slavery. So the woman you were talking to, I wonder how she would deal with that. I mean, just because a culture says something is right ain't necessarily so. No, and so we look at this article, and they're talking about that this rise in every country on earth. Yep. There is it is a pandemic of mental disorders and mental confusion and so on and so forth, but they're not addressing. There's one overriding mental disorder, Carl, that is responsible for all of this, and that is liberalism, in my opinion. Books of volumes have been written by medical experts, on the very real fact that liberalism is a mental disorder, and I believe it's the grandmother of them all. Yeah. Because when you start saying, because liberalism is defined in the dictionary, if you go to dictionary.com, and Wikipedia, by the way, they kind of copied and pasted what the dictionary says about liberalism. Liberalism is the unrestricted development in all spheres of human endeavor. That's liberalism. Well, if you live an unrestricted lifestyle, Carl, a judge is going to lock you up eventually. You'll start losing your privileges, your driving privileges. Your precious wife will eventually leave you. If you live unrestricted in all spheres of human endeavor, Carl, yeah. Nobody would ever be able to stay married. Nobody would keep their driver's licenses, and eventually you would get locked up because you would just live according to the whim and fashion of however you feel at the time, and that is what we see happening, not on a macro scale, but on the micro level, and as a result, we're seeing a macro development of mental disorders on every country in the world, and eventually it'll all come down to governments allowing people to live fully liberal lives so that they can control them. If you can live however way you want, as long as you keep voting us in, and that's why marijuana will be legal in Canada next week.
Well, and to dovetail into what you're saying, now you came at it from the geopolitical, social aspect, which is absolutely appropriate, and I agree with everything you said. From the biblical aspect, from the spiritual aspect, there are other veins to this. First of all, there's a prophecy in Romans 1. It starts off speaking to the culture of the day in the church at Rome 2,000 years ago, but then it goes into this future tense. The language is in future tense, so it's obviously prophetic, speaking about the days before the return of the Lord, and it speaks of this great depravity of mind that will sweep the planet. Now, some translations say a depraved mind. I forgot the other words. That word just sticks in my mind. But it talks about what leads up to it, and it's this total rejection of God's word. It's the rejection of God. It's the rejection of the standards and the principles of marriage, home, family, sexuality, gender. It's all right there. And then it says that starts into sexual deprivation that sinks deeper and deeper. Then we begin to worship created things rather than the Creator. We forget to give God His praise. We ignore Him. We say we don't believe in Him. And then the whole culture spreads, that culture spreads globally until finally it says God will give them over to a depraved mind. And now the headlines of our news, we're living in the day of the demonic outpouring and the internet ubiquitous reach, and the headlines say, the whole world is suffering from mental health pandemic.
And you spoke with your first guest about signs of the end times. I mean, definitely this is one of them. And I think it was all very well said. And I'm glad to be a part of the conversation. My name is Mike Shoesman, ppsimmons@live.com. I see my time is up.
Yeah, it is, Mike. God bless you. We'll see you next Friday. Thank you for a great job. Folks, it's good to have you with us. Brandon McBee will be up at the top of the second hour in just a few moments, so don't go anywhere. You're listening Freedom Friday. Carl Gallups, world-famous producer Mallory Bardwell is in the house. This is the Oval Office of Gulf Coast Talk Radio, 1330 WEBY and 99.1 FM.
On the cross, and how the conflict between Jesus and the gods of antiquity is about to erupt on planet Earth, fulfilling biblical prophecy. In the new book, Gods of Ground Zero, this explains everything.